I'm Jim Penman, founder and CEO of the Jim's Group, and I'm really excited that we're launching Jim's Legal, something we wanted to do for a long time to provide really cost-effective, ethical services to our franchisees and to the general public. Some lawyers are very good. Some solicitors give excellent service and they're ethical and they don't overcharge clients. Far too often we see very different things. We see solicitors, for example, doing things like helping somebody chase a $35,000 debt and charging them $100,000 in fees. That's an actual case that came up a couple of years back. So some solicitors can be very, very unethical. So what we want with Jim's Legal is a system that gives good advice, cost-effective advice, looking to the interests of the client and using our rating system to make sure that we actually do, people who use us want to use us again.
We've had a few discussions and cases, and I think one case in particular I'm thinking of, the legal costs actually became a barrier to trying to resolve the matter. So sometimes legal costs get out of hand, they're not proportionate to the matter, and we've had matters like that. We've also had matters where people haven't approached a lawyer and probably should have, and if they had a bit earlier, the matter could have been resolved more simply. So I think we've both, since we've been working together, seen both sides of this, and obviously there's an issue and a gap in the market that can be filled by sort of practical, common sense, cost effective.
One of the problems with legal practice is that the interest of the client and the lawyer can be very different. For example, if there's a case that really should be settled, and here's a fair statement settled, the lawyer should be saying, settle it. Now, what some lawyers can do is say, listen, if we go to court and fight this, I'm going to make a huge amount of money. Now, you will end up worse off. So the one thing we want to do is to avoid that kind of an issue. Because our reputation is so powerful, a client who's unhappy with us because of the legal service is going to spread across every other division. So we have a very strong obligation to have an end result which the client looks at and says, that's been good, I'm glad I used you. Even if you've made a lot less money, we might have made $5,000 when we could have made $500,000, but in the end, what matters is the client's got good value.
That's a large focus of it. So yes. Jim's Group is a very known and trusted brand, and I think people do find legal services intimidating or mysterious, and that's something we want to assist with.
And sometimes the advice might be, here's some general advice, you don't need a lawyer, or you just need this minimal amount of help, or this kind of form letter. In other words, turn it around and just say, what is in the interests of the client? We've got to be passionate about customer service, one of our strongest views, and we should never put our own financial interests first. It's a bit like the same principle as when you put on a franchisee. If you've got somebody you think is going to fail, then you don't put them on in the first place, because even though we'll make money, they'll lose money. You've always got to look at the interests of the person you're dealing with, because in the short term you lose money, in the long term it's the best way to run any great business.
And I can give an example of just the reluctance that people have to go and see lawyers. So having a will is a very important document. It deals with who's going to manage your estate, who's going to inherit the assets, for parents, who's going to look after and make parent-like decisions for their children. But about 50% of Australians die without a will. So it's a really important document, and for some reason or another, a lot of people just aren't getting it done. And I think that's a sign that people don't know, what's going to happen when they walk into a lawyer. And I think having Jim's Legal, part of the Jim's Group brand, this trusted brand, will kind of remove that intimidation factor, and hopefully people will feel free to come to us.
Well, let me give a practical example, and this is an awful thing, but 2 days ago, one of our franchisees died. A 41-year-old father of a young family and stuff just died, okay? The whole system is in absolute chaos. His wife, his widow, was in tears on the phone to me, crying, completely distraught, and everything's totally confused because they just don't know where they are. So people can die at any time. So just investing in a will is an extraordinarily important thing.
That's right, that's right. And it's not an expensive or especially complex process. So, that's something we'd love to help with and have as a core offering of Jim's Legal.
A little bit of basic advice. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What happens to the kids? What happens to this? What happens to this? Those kinds of things. Just a little bit of thought, a little bit of advice, simple document makes a massive difference.
I think that, I hope that people will be accepting of it and think this is a good thing. If we make legal services more accessible and approachable and take a practical, common sense, plain English approach, I think that's something that the legal industry as a whole should be striving for. And being involved in the legal industry and a member, I think it is something we're striving for. So I hope there'll be a really positive reaction to it within the industry.
Trouble is, in the community, lawyers can have a very bad name. There are more bad jokes about lawyers than any other subject I can think of. The point of it is, to a certain extent, it is justified because some lawyers are absolute scumbags. And I have personal experience in a number of different situations, not people working for me, but working for somebody else. What we want to do is to create an ethical standard that we hope would become general in the industry, and it's a client-first approach. Look to the long-term interests of the client and therefore of your own company rather than the short-term ability to bill. Andy's highly experienced. He's been solicitor for how many years you've been in practice?
2006 I started. So
we're talking about sort of 17 years.
Yeah, 17.
So very experienced. Andy's also, if I could say, a very decent kind of guy. He actually, if Andy have a conflict, is I'll be saying, hey, I want to pursue this, and Andy will say, no, come on, make a compromise. And in some situation, in one particular situation, he advised me to settle. I didn't. I ended up paying an extra like $20,000 that I shouldn't have had to pay. So he's got a very strong. He's a fellow Christian. We actually talk on the same sort of level of that. Like, calling yourself a Christian doesn't imply that you're always ethical. But the fact of the matter is there's a common ethical framework. And I've never known Andy to do anything that was less than ethical, less than the interests of the person he's dealing with.
Oh, well, thanks, Jim. And look, on my side, I'm just proud to align with the Jim's brand. It's an iconic brand. It's well known. It's trusted. And so there's a responsibility that comes with that. And we take that seriously. If you want to engage us, head to jimslegal.com.au or contact 131 546.